What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing great wherever you're tuning in from. Today's video features another sharp appearance from Scott Jennings, who's been absolutely on point lately. I've got a few clips lined up for you, and they're definitely worth watching. In the second clip, we'll get into his breakdown of the recent signals leak. But first, things kick off with a wild exchange. The panel discusses a controversial moment where Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett referred to Texas Governor Greg Abbott as Hot Wheels, a jab at his use of a wheelchair. If you haven't seen that clip yet, don't worry. I'll play it first to give you the full context. Then stick around because Jennings goes on to completely dismantle a panel of clueless Democrats with his usual precision. Let's get into it.
As we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey, y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
How the Democrats came to appoint Jasmine Crockett as the unquestioned leader of your party. But thank God. And I think what she should do is go on TV twice as much as she is right now, maybe 3 times as much. Because every time she appears and makes one of these mistakes, says something radical, it only further divides her party from the rest of the other 80% of America who can't stand this. But the problem is there's an audience for it. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's audience cheering on Tesla vandalism. I hear the Daily Show audience cheering on attacks on Elon Musk. I hear the human rights audience cheering on an attack on a man in a wheelchair. And I realize this is what the left has become. An angry mob of people who are cheering on attacks on a guy in a wheelchair and vandalism against people who bought a Tesla. It's pathetic. No lesson could ever be learned as long as you're doing these things in front of audiences who roar when you do it. When you have comedians who are broad messengers for the left making unfair jokes and people are roaring, when you have politicians being vulgar and saying what's the lesson? What's the audience? It says a lot about the audience.
First of all, have you met MAGA? Have you been to a MAGA rally where Trump is mocking a disabled journalist or a POW or saying we should punch him out? I mean, it is rich. And let me tell you, I have been very, very out there on criticizing Trump for that disgusting rhetoric that has coarsened the language around politics. It's gross. He's why we got here. And what she did was disgusting. And I am not going to accept her spin of this. It's disgusting and gross to mock someone who is disabled just because you don't like them. And if Democrats, this is your idea, this is what your party is going to do now, is do Trump but gross but worse and then pretend it's not. I'm not here for this, and please do better. Please, this cannot be the answer for the future of the Democratic Party.
I mean, I think actions speak louder than words. And in this instance, I think we have a president who, when the plane crash happened in Washington, D.C., he blamed it on people with disabilities. When RFK says that autism is a threat to the American way of life, which is a disability, apparently the White House has ended ASL, American Sign Language interpreters, in briefings, which is making it inaccessible. Questioning and gutting Social Security, which a lot of disabled people rely on, Medicaid, Medicare, people rely on. And in his first campaign, mocking disability. 2 wrongs don't make a right, but actions speak louder than words. And the policies of the Republican, including undermining special education, ID, the Individuals with Disability and Education Act, making sure that schools are not going to be accessible. Those are the actions of this administration. Those are the actions of the Republican Party. I would rather folks be demonizing those things than...
But to be clear, you don't agree with what she said, right?
Well, her explanation was that she wasn't referring to that policy.
So you buy that?
But here's the thing. If you make fun of somebody because of their disability, I do not agree with that. As a person with a disability, as a person who has family members with a disability, as a person who has taught children with a disability, that is not acceptable. She said that's not what she was doing. And so I know Jasmine, and I believe Jasmine if that's what she was saying.
I don't know her yet. And so here's how I see it. She's new. She's young, and she's trying to find her way. I think that this party is scrambling, trying to seem tough and I'm seeing this party traffic in a lot of curse words. That's supposed to be like the new cool thing to do. I don't think that's going to be as useful. I even heard Pete Buttigieg with a whole bunch of curse words. I don't know who gave that memo. I don't think that's very useful. I think you have to be very careful when you're talking about people with disabilities. And I don't think she was careful. And I don't know her enough to say she's not being honest. But I'm going to tell you, it sounded bad. And I just want to finish. I think this party is trying to find a way to look tough and to show fight. But this is not the way. I don't think the cursing is going to work. I think I've been on stage and I've gotten a little bit hyped sometimes too. I hope that she will take this as lessons. You talked about learning lessons, that type of stuff. It doesn't sound to me like she's actually taking full responsibility. If that's true, I don't like it, and she can't do that again. She's too important to us to do that again.
What I fear is that no lesson could ever be learned as long as you're doing these things in front of audiences who roar when you do it. When you have comedians who are broad messengers for the left making
Scott,
unfair jokes and people are roaring, when you have politicians being vulgar and saying what's the lesson? What's the audience? It says a lot about the audience.
But what we're trying to deal with is that Trump has done this and he's been successful.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody who does this stuff and they're successful, you start thinking, well, is that the right way? I would like for us to say it's not. But I think it's hard for us to hear Republicans scolding us on it when your guy does it all the time. We are trying to find a way forward. Jasmine is too important to make these kinds of mistakes. I think she has a bright future. I hope that tonight she's looking and says, you know what? I don't have to do that kind of stuff to get an applause line. She's too important for us to make.
Jasmine Crockett is all smoke and mirrors. She puts on this exaggerated hood congresswoman act, but the truth is she's well educated and comes from a solid background. It's all performative, and honestly, I say let her keep going. Let her and the rest of the Democratic leadership double down on the chaos, the insults, and the theatrics. Because when the next major election rolls around in 4 years and the debates are happening, voters won't be buying it. The average American, someone who cares about economic stability and public safety, isn't going to cast a vote for that kind of noise. Just look around. People vandalizing Teslas, which are ironically owned by many on the left. It's self-sabotage. So by all means, let Crockett keep digging her own political grave. If she ends up on a debate stage with someone like J.D. Vance, she'll get exposed. Now let's move on to the segment where they break down the signals leak. And real quick, if you're enjoying the content, hit that thumbs up. It helps more than you know. If you've been here before and haven't subscribed yet, maybe this is the video that earns it.
He's executing on a brand new political agenda. And a brand new economic agenda that is a total turnaround from the previous administration, meaning spending less government money and having less sort of artificial spending in the economy and really investing more in private sector employment. It takes some time. There is a lot of evidence out there that manufacturing is coming back. There is investment coming back to the United States. But the effects of that will not happen overnight. But transitioning the economy from one that is based on what the government can do for you versus what you can do for yourself in the private economy is going to be a transition. I would just point out right now, the right track, wrong track number in all the polling is better than it has been in years. So despite the consumer confidence numbers, people there is evidence that the American people think maybe we are onto something here, and I'll feel better about the economy when it feels like my life isn't quite so expensive. That's what we learn. High-ranking officials having a thoughtful policy discussion, executing a military plan to take out people who need to be taken out. There was a lot of concern about this national security team when it was appointed that, hey, they didn't really know how to do these jobs. Given what the U.S. military just did
I think we were
to
right.
the Houthis, given what they just did, and given the way it was executed and handled at the highest reaches of our government, I have a lot of confidence in the president's decision-making and his top team's ability to carry out.
That is bananas. We just saw.
We did exactly what we wanted to do.
Yes, but one wrong move.
How long this would have gone.
Do you not acknowledge that?
No, it almost
No,
blew up,
this is
though.
rank incompetence, and I am very fearful.
About calling Europe pathetic in those messages.
Calling
Europe,
our allies.
Our allies.
They say that publicly. I mean.
Well, there was that.
Are you under any illusion that we're out here telling Europe how great they are as a public matter? There is a standoff going on right now between the president and the vice president and the leaders of Europe about what they need to be doing to secure their own countries. And by the way, they're right. They do need to step up.
I know, Jeff, pretty well. He's a very responsible journalist.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God he was.
And thank God, because some other idiot maybe wouldn't have sat on this and done the responsible thing. But I think, to me, everything Van just said is correct, and I share those concerns. To me, the most alarming part of this is that we are hearing Mike Waltz and Donald Trump say, well, we learned our lesson. He learned a lesson. This is not an internship. No, I mean, I'm serious. The national security of our nation shouldn't be where we're doing on-the-job training. It shouldn't be where we're figuring it out as we go. If we can't trust our national security leaders to protect our national security from the second they get on the job, I have deep, deep concerns that go far beyond this mess that just happened.
The idea today, the main thrust of the White House argument all day seemed to be Jeffrey Goldberg's still a bad guy, which explains how we managed to invite him on this group chat. And secondly, it maybe wasn't classified because Pete Hegseth sent it.
Yeah,
Is that satisfying? I mean, that really was the message today from the White House.
Yeah, and none of us have seen what was supposedly war plans, and there's still a dispute over just how sensitive it really was. But I do think it's noteworthy that the White House is able to acknowledge a mistake, say they're going to learn from it, say they're trying to figure out the technical issues that led to it. I mean, they did own up to it. I mean, obviously, there's been some rhetoric and hyperbole around Goldberg and others, who, by the way, I agree, acted responsibly in this particular case, even though if I have some quibbles with what he's done in the past. He did absolutely act responsibly here. So I think that's actually kind of a refreshing thing for the government to say, okay, yes, effed up, we'll fix it, this won't happen again, especially when you contrast it with previous military and national security snafus in our recent history in which no one was held accountable, no one was fired, no mistakes were admitted until the very end. Joe Biden was saying Afghanistan was a success. I like it here that Donald Trump, the president, said he's a good man, but he learned a lesson. That tells me he and the president with Waltz had a hard talk.
The information about targets, the weapons being used, the timing, that's not of concern?
Look, I don't have kids, but I feel like this is when you walk into a room and you told your kid, don't draw on the wall. And they drew on the wall and they have marker all over their face and all over their hand. And they're like, I didn't do it. Yes, you did. We're not stupid. You did it. And you're not really admitting. You're like, well, I'm sorry, but not really sorry. We deserve better. Who is being held accountable? Who is running the investigation?
Well, Michael Waltz is running the investigation.
I know.
The president said today, Michael Waltz
that was kind of tongue-in-cheek, right?
He has to, because he's the one in control of it.
It's like Dick Cheney being the vice president.
You guys are acting like he went out. You guys are acting like he ran out with a mask and robbed a bank. He obviously had a technical snafu, and he needs in his office to figure out how it happened.
But here's the thing. The thing is, don't be on Signal.
We know how it happened.
The technical.
Don't be on the app.
I've done this a lot of times. I've been on emails where I'm like, ooh, I wasn't supposed to be on that. I delete it, keep it moving, don't spread the tea. But what he did, but I don't work in the White House anymore. He should not have been on Signal for that to happen. There's a way to avoid the mistake.
And there's a reason. I think sometimes people at home are like, well, people break rules, blah, 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 blah. No. We have geopolitical adversaries that want this information so they can kill Americans. That's the gun to your head every day in the White House is what I'm doing. If I don't handle it right, can have devastating consequences. So you handle every piece of paper. You don't even throw stuff away. You put it in a burn bag.
That's right.
So it can be burned. You are so terrified that you're going to do something to get Americans killed. So the idea that you have the vice president of the United States on Signal?
I know.
Wow. That's nuts.
But John, look, they're doing the right thing in terms of acknowledging that an error occurred. You have to do that. Number two, you have to move forward with a comprehensive review of how did this occur. And then you implement stricter communications protocols moving forward so that it doesn't happen again. Now, look, you can go from Democratic administrations to Republican administrations and find various issues as it pertains to intelligence. 1995 CIA disinformation controversy. Valerie Plame, where her name was accidentally leaked when it shouldn't have. Hillary Clinton and the 33,000 emails, and some of those emails had classified information on it. It shouldn't occur. And then to Scott's point, look at Joe Biden in Afghanistan. Every administration, Republican and Democrat alike, have had some type of snafu with something like this pertaining to highly classified information. We correct it, we acknowledge it, and we move forward. And that's what the administration
But the difference
is
is
attempting
the
to do.
people responsible now were yelling, lock her up.
That's right.
About
The
those things.
hypocrisy,
And they weren't right about that. They were right that she messed up, and I held her accountable as well.
Yeah.
All of that was bad. Yeah. But the hypocrisy is so rank. These very people are giddily firing people who know what they're doing. And should be there. And meanwhile, no one's going to be held accountable for this.
Michael, also just real quick, there already are things. Like, we don't need to put new rules in place. There already are rules. They broke the rules. That's the thing. Is that they two sets of rules, right? They were on a form of communication they should not have been on. They knew better and they did not do better. When you know better and you do not do better,
One thing's for sure. Every administration is bound to make mistakes, some more serious than others. But let's be honest, the withdrawal from Afghanistan wasn't just a misstep. It was an absolute failure. It went far beyond poor judgment. It was a disaster, and people should have been held accountable for the lives lost and the chaos that followed. As for this latest situation, I agree. It should never happened. There will be an investigation, some symbolic consequences, maybe a few slaps on the wrist. But at the end of the day, it's still a major breach that can't be ignored. And when they bring up Hillary's email scandal, that was even more reckless in its own way. Truth is, neither of these failures should have ever occurred. Time will tell how they respond, but accountability has to mean something. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to support the channel. I appreciate all of you. See you in the next one. Peace out.